magazine in the daytime, they broadcast about the individual. That could be in the daytime also, right? And if they come to you and they're speaking freely about their particular sins, you know? And like, you admonish them, but they continue to do it. You know what I mean? They continue to speak freely about it. You know?
What to do?
Yeah, it's like you already admonished. Like,
Clear. Well, I mean, Sheikh, I would look at the situation. If someone's coming to you crying, complaining about themselves,
no, they're not complaining about
bragging.
it. Yeah, they actually like,
Collapse.
I know you, man, so I can say this.
No, you can't do that,
like,
Aki.
no, I don't wanna.
Even if I know
I wanna
you,
hear it.
no. And you have to make it clear to that person that we can't be cool if you keep this behavior. And if a person refuses to take the correct sound advice based off of Quran and Sunnah, and they bring you that nonsense, then you may have to boycott them. And that's another discussion about the times in which it's lawful to boycott a Muslim, and not to speak to a Muslim, not to give salams to a Muslim, etc. And that person, they should be shunned. Not for the purpose of, I'm better than you, but for the purpose of, you gotta stop. For your own sake, for everybody's sake. And it's not cool. I just told you what the Prophet ﷺ said. And I don't want to hear that either. I'm not into that. That ain't my lifestyle. I'm not into that stuff. Friday nights, you know where I'm at. I'm home with my kids. Hey, I'm not into that crazy stuff. So please don't bring that around me. If they can't respect that and they can't obey that, then boycott them. Leave them be. And Allah surely knows best, Sheikh. Fine. Share the bus.
Yes. When I was in Riyadh, I was invited to like a luncheon. It was on Friday afternoon after Jumu'ah, right? And it was a situation where a woman had, she was a widow. And her husband, of course, had passed away. And she was kind of, I guess after 4 months and 10 days, she was kind of returning to society. So, is there a hadith? I remember reading a hadith that a woman who's a widow should stay in the house, like a iddah, for a certain time period after the death of her husband.
Okay.
And now, how does that play out in terms of necessity or non-necessity? If she's able to stay in, should she stay in a certain period of time, or how does?
Clear.
What's the rulings on that?
With regards to the iddah of a widow, a woman whose husband has died, then there are things that she should leave off. Perfume, makeup, attractive clothing, and she should stick to her house as much as possible. She's allowed to leave if there's a need, whether it's daytime or nighttime, if there's a need. But the problem with this issue, Sheikh, is the problem which is bigger and greater. What's the etiquette of a Muslim woman in her house? How often do women leave their homes? For what reasons do they leave their homes? Every day, dressed in any manner, come home any manner, out with anybody on a daily basis. When the Quran clearly gives guidance with regards to the house and the home, in and out. Okay? So therefore, if there's a hajj, if there's a need, she leaves. Bil ma'ruf, in an honorable, respectful manner. Okay? And those extra things that are specifically prohibited, she has to avoid. But if there's a hajj, she leaves and then she should come back. Once the iddah period is over, it's over. Khalas. She's not allowed to enjoy what she was previously allowed to enjoy. But the problem is that if she was someone who was in and out the house all the time, then khalas. Versus a woman who really doesn't go out the house but so much, only when she has to, so on and so forth, in a proper way, that's a different story. Okay? What's important is once the iddah is up, she goes back to what's normally lawful for her to do. During the iddah period, she can leave the home if there's a what? If there's a need, whatever that need may be.
So if it's a person who doesn't work or anything else, and she's able to stay in, she should
La
stay.
shak, as the text states.
People who can handle her affairs. If she
Bring her what she needs.
Yeah.
If she has to get some fresh air or something like that, hire her. That's not what's meant by, you taking a walk or getting fresh air, going outside, versus a person just going out, mixing, not mourning properly over the husband, let alone coming in contact with. Aywa, you married yet? Mashallah, brother Fulan, you know. I know he was in the tea, so you know I'm gonna drop some tea off by the house. You know, may Allah have mercy on him. You know, you can contact me if you need something. Inshallah, I'm here for you. It's reality. And if you look, if you look how deep and how real Islam is, and we talk about the Sahaba now, the Quran clearly talks about this, and it forbids a woman in iddah speaking to her, talking to her, making plans, using an indirect expression versus a direct expression. That in itself is deep, and it shows you the nature of man and woman, is that the attraction is there. And whenever the two sexes come in contact with each other, it's going to be what? Somehow, some way. Somehow, some way. It's going to cross the mind, right? And the law is talking to the who? He's talking to Sahaba. So being married was something which was necessary. There was no, I'm going to wait 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. I'm going to do this career. The it is up. What? Bismillah. Get married. All right? And that's a deep concept in itself. And Allah surely knows the best. Play it. Anything else? Class? Fadl. Bismillah. Wa salam wa barakatuh.
Two-part question.
Fadl, Sheikh.
The first part is it permissible for a mother to lead her sons in salat if they know how to pray, but they're not puberty?
Can a woman lead her sons in prayer if they're not of age?
Yes, but they know how to make the salat, but they're not puberty.
Clear.
Is it permissible for her to lead them in prayer?
No, she can't lead them in the prayer. Either they pray by themselves or they lead her in the prayer. As long as they know how to pray, even if they don't have to pray, but it's lawful, according to the strongest opinion, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, for someone who's under the age of puberty to lead someone who's in or beyond the age of puberty in prayer, as long as they know how to pray. As long as they're covered correctly. So my 7-year-old son, my 8-year-old son, my 10-year-old son, my 11-year-old son, hypothetically speaking, can lead my wife in prayer. My wife's of age, my son isn't of age. But I've taught my son the Fatiha, he knows Juz Amma, he knows the Tashahhud, he knows the positions of the prayer, he knows how to stand still, and his clothes, he's covered. That's lawful, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. But a woman is not to be the leader of those boys. If they're really young, that's a different story. But even then, that's still starting the child off with backwardsness. And that has to be instilled from day one. Women don't stand in front of men in the prayer. Period. Wallahu alam. The next part.
Can a woman pray with a man that's not her husband? It's just those two.
Praying with a man that's not their husband if it's just those two. If it's a public place or even a masjid, that's one thing. But anything other than that, it's going to be shady. It's going to be shady. But let's say for argument's sake, in an airport. A musalla in an airport. Right? In which there's a little screen, little thingy. It's covered, but you can see, the man is making salah, the woman comes in. There's no prohibition behind that. As long as there's no fitna. Wallahu alam. Khair inshallah. Let's see what we have online. JH from Edison, New Jersey. Assalamu alaikum. How to get children from different wives together if wives don't get along so that the children will know each other. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That's a difficult situation. At the end of the day, you believe, you feel that your children need to get to know their siblings. You gotta make it happen. You gotta make that clear to the children in the best way possible and to those wives. Right now, it's not about you. It's bigger than you. These are my children, whether you like it or not. You guys don't get along, flan out. Okay, no problem. But they are my kids. They're from my loins. Bottom line, I want my son to know my son, my daughter, etc. Bismillah. So the man, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, is going to have to make the necessary sacrifice and put his foot down, and then the bottom line. And of course, that's easier said than done. When we talk about fitna, emotions, this, that, or may lead to them fighting or whatever the case may be. So you use hikmah, right? Use hikmah. That's what I would say. Hikmah with a little bit of elbow grease, right? B'idhnillahi ta'ala. Wallahu a'lam. That's what I would say.
That's old school shit.
Allahu Akbar, huh?
From the beginning.
Question is coming from Washington, D.C. This was J.W. Is sending flowers appropriate to non-Muslim neighbors grieving in recent passing? Barakallahu feek. Well, you say a kind word to them. Send them something that will be a means of you showing your humanity to them. Respect for death in general, regardless of the religion. They're your neighbors or your co-workers or colleagues from college. Whether that's flowers or something other than flowers. You can send them a message. You can call them. You can visit them. You can bring them food. Something like this. And if a person sent flowers for argument's sake, can't necessarily say that's unlawful. Of course, flowers in itself, that's a discussion. Where do flowers come from? Sending flowers for the dead, where does that come from? Is that based off of polytheism and superstition? That's a different discussion among Muslims. What's important is the general rule is that respect for death is respect for death. That's number one. Second, and there are hadiths to prove that. Death is death, bottom line. Let alone humanity. We're humans. You're crying, you're sad, you're torn up. Just because I'm a Muslim doesn't mean I can't feel sorrow or compassion for you. We're human beings. Let alone you're my neighbor. You have rights over me, I have rights over you. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry for your loss. I can't say R.I.P. Pray for them. I can't say I couldn't pray for him. I can't do that. Okay? That's prohibited, clearly. But showing moral support, emotional support, so on and so forth. Okay, then show. That's a means of da'wah. And Allah knows best. You may be there for them at their time of need. That may soften their hearts. Right? Many non-Muslims may not show the necessary support. Or the family member of the deceased feels that those people are fake. They're not worried. They're not afraid. They're worried about money. They're worried about how can they capitalize off of this person's death. But you, the Muslim, my neighbor, you actually gave me a hug. I felt when you gripped me up. You didn't push me away from you. I cried for a little bit. My tears got on you. You said it's okay. You helped me out. You brought me food. You brought me dinner. You took me to work. You shoveled my sidewalk. I actually feel some realness from you, some sincerity from you. As far as my family member is Christian, they didn't care about him or me. They never visited me when he was alive. They didn't care about my well-being, so on and so forth. That's all fake. The funeral is just a fashion show. Eat some good food, drink some good liquor, whatever they socialize. It's a fact. But you, on the other hand, the Muslim, you actually was there for me. Man, that may break that non-Muslim's heart in half. Literally. That may melt their heart. And they may accept Islam from that.
Amen.
Wallahu a'lam. Next question is coming from Philly, PA. Initials RB. In cases where swearing is allowed, is the phrase, Wallahi deen okay? No. You swear by Allah and that's it. Wallahi, and then say what you need to say. Inshallah. Maybe Wallahi al-Azim.
Inshallah.
Allah knows best. I don't know. CC from Moscow, Russia. If a country with over 90% Muslim population has a constitution stating it's a democratic country, is it taghut even though in practice the country implements the Sharia? What's important is that a Muslim ruler is to make the Sharia the foundation of his constitution in theory and in practice. In theory and in practice. Alright? The Sharia in theory and the Sharia in practice. Regardless of the mistakes and the errors, the shortcomings that they may have. Alright? So if you declare that your country is secular, answer is clear. No matter what you do. If you declare that your country is Islamically compliant, Sharia compliant, but all of your practices are secular, doesn't matter what you claim. So there's a difference between a country that is secular versus a country that is Islamic and has some secular issues and problems and mistakes. All right? Another very important issue, scholastically speaking, on the topic is just because a country is predominantly dominated or is predominantly Muslim, that doesn't necessarily mean that the rulers are upon the Sharia, in theory or in practice. It doesn't mean that. Okay? So it's based off of what's there, regardless of what's said, but what's there. I'll say that's in brief. Wallahu ta'ala. Next question is coming from London, UK. Initials QB. Do you know of any unbroken chain of discipleship today going all the way back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? For sure. There are many ijazas. There's no doubt about that. TA from Chicago, Illinois. Is it permissible to fast from speaking as an ibadah? No. MC from Charlotte. According to ayah above Surah Nur, does this mean a fornicator will only marry a fornicator? Barakallahu feek. What's meant by that is a Muslim man who isn't a fornicator cannot marry a fornicatress or opposite while they're fornicating, in a state of fornication. As far as repentance, I'm clean, I made tawbah, I'm no longer into that, that's a different story. But you can't marry a whore as she is a whore. You can't marry a pimp or a player or whatever word or term you want to use while he's but that's it, right? The revolving door, the key ring, right? No, almost time. You can't do it. They gotta walk away from that and then make tawbah. Wallahu. Next question is coming from Philadelphia, PA. Initials RB. Sheikh, I see that you'll be visiting Canada soon. Have they lifted vax requirements for non-citizens? May Allah bless you. I think you should go on the website and find out what the people at the border say. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And don't jump to conclusions or assumptions. Allah knows what's possible and what's impossible. Nah. You're trying. You're trying. It's not that simple though. RS from Atlanta, Georgia. Is it better for a woman to get a PhD in linguistics to help academically prove the linguistic miracle of the Quran to a Western audience while keeping her responsibilities, or stay home? If you have the ability to get a PhD to help Islam, do it. Whether that's online or if you have to go and study in person. What's important is cherry picking is a problem. A brother says you can't go to college, it's haram to go to college, it's haram to sit with men and women in the college, all right, no problem. But the same brother, he goes and he teaches at a college. Or he got his PhD like that. Right? And there are many other examples and manifestations of cherry picking. It doesn't work like that. You're either going to follow the system or what? No. Or you're not going to follow it. Wallahu a'lam, Mel Al-Basal. AS or A from Toronto, Canada. Is permissible to lie about your sin to cover it up. Try your best to be as indirect as possible and discreet as possible. SH from DC. Assalamu alaikum. Is it wajib to make the farewell tawaf for Umrah like for Hajj? Barakallahu fikum. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This sounds to be like our brother, huh? Shamsuddin. So what do we do? Now, justice or mercy? KIA? Relax. Some put on Rahma? No. Mercy? Like, hey, inshallah. La, the farewell tawaf is pertaining to Hajj, not Umrah. You go make Umrah, once you've shaven or trimmed your head, you're allowed to stick around, chill, relax in Mecca, do whatever you need to do of beneficial ibadah, etc. Wallahu a'lam. We miss you, Shams. Next question is coming from Brooklyn, New York. Initials SM. Sheikh, are you Athari or Ash'ari? I think the answer to that question, hopefully, is what? Clear. From the content of my classes, lectures, books that we talk about, discuss, I think the answer for the one who wants to know the answer is what? More than clear. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. May Allah guide all Muslims to that which is correct. SM from Brooklyn, New York. What is riba? What is riba? Can you clarify your view of when it's necessary? I heard scholars say necessity is only when compelled. I don't understand the question. Necessity is only when compelled. When you're compelled, it becomes necessity, right? Sahih or not? Right or wrong? If you're compelled, then it becomes a necessity. It was a necessity because I was.
Mashallah. 6 on one hand, half a dozen. Mashallah.
Wallahu a'lam. Next question. AS from London, UK. Sometimes I feel like Allah is talking to me through certain things. Like, for example, if I randomly see ayahs in relation to what I'm thinking, how do I make sure I'm not being delusional? Seek refuge in Allah from shaitan. If you want to know something, then read what Allah says about it in general. There are no prophets and messengers after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wallahu a'lam. I.e. from Philly, should you make a child with developmental delay fast during Ramadan once they begin to reach puberty? Biologically, they seem to be of age, but mentally they're somewhat behind. If they're of age, then they're of age, regardless of whatever developmental problem or issue that they're having. If they're 15, if they have menstruation, if they have pubic hair, if they had a wet dream, etc., etc. If they're of age, then they are of age. If they have the mental capacity to fast, even with some issues, a couple screws are loose, there's some problems, they have to fast. Wallahu a'lam, to the best of their ability. KW from London, UK. What do I do if my husband doesn't practice deen and not giving wife her rights, so wife in turn doesn't give his rights, emotionally, mentally, and physically? Well, at the end of the day, whoever oppresses you, then the Quran allows you to, in a manner in which they did to you. All right? Try your best to get to the core of the problem, the source of the problems. Wallahu a'lam. Question is coming from MA from Istanbul. I'm assuming Turkey. Is working at a hotel as a receptionist halal? The hotel offers rooms with breakfast only, nothing haram, but a lot of customers are from Europe and mostly not married, as you know. I wouldn't say it's haram. You're providing a lawful service, a hotel room. You can sleep by yourself. You can sleep with a man, a woman, an animal. You can do whatever you want in that hotel room. That's not my business, nor is it my concern. I provide a lawful service, lodging for a traveler, for a visitor, a tourist, period. What they do is between them and themselves. It's between them and Allah. That's not your duty, that's not your job. And the whole entire dunya is connected. There's always going to be something lawful, something from somewhere, somehow. And that's why some of the Salaf Salih, some of the pious predecessors, they would say the most difficult things to find are three. The hardest, the rarest things to find are three. And some said two. One of them, he mentioned, it is a true friend. It is a dinar, a gold coin, which is purely halal. And the last one was وَرَجُلٌ يَعْمَلْ عَلَى السُنَّةِ, is a man who's truly implementing the sunnah of the Prophet. It's extremely hard to find. So the concept of one gold coin, a gold coin, it doesn't come from tears, blood, oppression. Someone was wrong, someone was exploited. That's, think about it in the time of the Salaf. You're talking about 1,400 years ago. Think about now, you buy a bag of coffee, fair trade. How fair is that trade? Where does the coffee beans come from? How many people cried for your cup of coffee? The rainforest, an animal, a bird, a fish, the people in South America, Kenya, wherever it came from. The people transporting it, smuggling it, etc. How much haram is between your cup of coffee and etc. So everything in the dunya is always going to be what? Connected. This was taken from this one, this was given to this one, this was in, what heck of that? So try your best to avoid that which is directly haram yourself. And Allah surely knows best. Khair, inshallah, we'll stop here tonight. Thank you very much for listening and tuning in. May Allah guide us all and purify our intentions and grant us firmness. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Hashtag,